everybody. So after that interesting section one of this special episode with Prashant, we are going to discuss in this section about future of marketing and how it has evolved. But before we move on to that, a quick introduction. I am Harpreet. I host marketing, Demystified. Along with me, I have Vikesh Dhani, who's a co-host and an eminent marketeer. And we have today a very, very special guest, Prashant, who is the author of Maiden Future. It's a best-selling book. I grabbed my copy from the airport. So it's a really good book. So you can see that in Vikesh's hand as well. So we will be focusing completely, and then Prashant is also having that. My copy is there, but it's somewhere in the bookshelf. So in this particular section, we will just be focusing on marketing and how it has evolved and what are Prashant's take on different aspects of marketing and what holds in the future for marketeers and marketing as a discipline. So I request Vikesh to start with the first question.
Thank you, Harpreet. Thank you once again. Prashant, yeah, it's been really wonderful. The section one that we covered had some really interesting questions, and we now move on to the next section. We've talked about how you got started into marketing, some early experiences, some key things that you observed, certain experiences where things did not go as well as you had planned. Really useful. But now, since you have such a span, what are some of the significant changes that you've seen in the field of marketing over the years? So, how has the industry evolved, and what key things do you see, that will drive the future of marketing?
So I think the most important shift is complexity itself. I remember, say 20 years back when I had started my career, early years, if you understood TV, print, cinema, outdoor, internet, internet wasn't there at that time. I just started. Basically, much of marketing was about understanding television, newspapers, maybe a little bit of radio and out of home. And the marketplace was relatively simple because you had offline stores that you had to manage. The pricing space was relatively simple. The distribution pathways were relatively simple. All those areas, and you may have noticed I'm dialing the 4 P's of marketing, let's say. All those areas have become so much more complex. There are so many more options, right? And then a lot of those new areas have require data savviness, require tech savviness. You could be a expert in creating great campaigns, and you are a great marketer. Today, you have to be a great marketer. You don't just have to be a great campaign guy, but also a great website and app guy, UX UI guy. You have to be a great e-commerce guy. These are complete. You have to be a great content guy. These are completely new areas that have been added to what a marketer is expected to do, and that's no mean task. That is why I think in the book I have mentioned that great, well-rounded marketer is a very rare creature today. And somebody who can master these different axes on which marketing exists. And there's this triangle that people often use, which is creativity, data, and technology. If you develop a certain level of expertise in each of these 3 axes, no one else can be a bigger value creator in an organization. To me, to be a marketer is both tremendous responsibility, but also tremendous power, because let us not forget that anything that a business does, absolutely anything, must directly or indirectly create value at the customer interface, right? In some form or shape, whether it's in terms of product, whether it's of pricing, whether it's in terms of accessibility, whether it's in terms of share of mind, whether it's in terms of service experience, and so on and so forth, right? It must create value at the customer interface. Anything that a business does which does not create a delta on the customer interface is not worth doing. And sometimes it's first order, sometimes second order, sometimes it's third order, right? Like you need good HR people so that they can hire good people, so that they can think of better ways to meet the customer's needs, right? So I'm saying there are indirect ways to do that, right? And who is the custodian of the customer interface? It's marketers. They are tasked with this immense responsibility to understand what people need. So to me, that's a tremendous power if you know how to exercise it, right? But to be able to exercise it in today's world, well, you need to understand data, you need to understand technology, and you need to understand creativity. So to me, that complexity of the task is one big shift. The others are actually secondary. Like, of course, we'll talk about how CMO and CTO or CIO organizations are coming together more and more. So that is becoming more and more crucial. So the ability for a marketer to be able to collaborate across the board with the left brain side of the organization is very important. So I think there is a call upon marketers to be more whole brain as well. Like in the 20 years back, you could be a very creative guy who actually finance guys, you don't identify with them, and so on and so forth. But today, I think that luxury, or IT, like IT organization didn't talk to marketing organization that often in those days, but nowadays that is becoming de rigueur. So yeah, that triangle of creativity, data, and technology, where a marketer should sit, is a very important development. Another important concept I have spoken about in the book is that of a venture marketer, that every good marketer needs to wear a venture capital hat, because the pace of change on the content side, on the channel side, on the the way people are evolving fast is such that at any point of time you cannot have a portfolio of plays that are highly predictable, that are all safe, tested, and tried. Like I remember when I started my career with PNG, television was it. 90% of the money went into television, and the template had been set over the years. You couldn't go wrong doing television. You know what I mean? Now there are no such safe ways. So you are managing a portfolio of risks. So you will have low risk options, tested and tried. Then you will maybe 70% of your investment you are making as a marketer is in those tested and tried stuff, but 20% is going into stuff that is moderate risk but potentially higher rewards. And then you have 10% of the stuff going into high risk but potentially very high rewards. So that balance has to be made, and the attitude needs to evolve as per that as well, because more and more businesses are competing with their Silicon Valley disruptors in different categories who come from a fail fast attitude. So they're not spending 2 years developing the product and then going to the market, and the plans are finalized 6 months early and stuff like that. They are launching betas, and then people are reacting and they are improving the product, and then they are so it's an ongoing evolutionary process where consumers can be the collaborators. So clearly the need for agility in such a context has never been higher. So I would say two things. Number one, negotiating the complexity of creativity, data, and technology with skill and tact. And number two is agility to navigate as a venture marketer would be two very important ways to thrive as a marketer in these change times.
Fantastic. Yeah, I think it really makes sense. And I think this also makes it very critical and important for aspiring marketers to, dip their hands in different, areas early on, and get a hang of, everything, so that when you're trying to, whichever field you're going to specialize in, even within marketing, you need to know very well that, what does it take to really make it a holistic campaign, right? And then you're able to coordinate with other stakeholders much better, other, functions within marketing much better, so that the outcome is, as impactful as you intended to. So, yeah.
Right. So, like you said, Prashant, it is very important for today's marketer to understand data and then technology and then creativity, of course, is something which he's supposed to be master at. But there are certain businesses who have adopted this very nicely, and there are certain who have struggled. So, why do you think some businesses are able to leverage this digital transformation or digital marketing well as compared to others? And then, what mistakes should businesses avoid when particularly charting this territory to become more successful?
So, in my experience with the global players, local players across different industries, if I were to summarize what differentiates those who have navigated this journey well versus those who have not, two things come to mind. Number one is silos. And probably the silo that stands out most prominently is the silo between the CMO organization and the CTO organization. Sometimes, I mean, they are also CIOs. So there is absolutely no doubt that the future of marketing is closely interwoven with technology. All right. So if you look at the experiences of the future, and I'm not even getting into generative AI right now, we can talk about that later. All the experiences of the future when it relates to customers, they are being created by putting technology as the center of value creation. So it is important that these silos don't exist. The second aspect will be, the way Silicon Valley has changed our world in the last 20 years is that much as there are these groundbreaking innovations that come from Silicon Valley relentlessly in different areas, there is also a lot of pointless hype or dishonest hype. Maybe they are not intended to be such, because those who truly, let's say you have a founder who has his own vision of how the future should look like. Obviously, he will try to sell his stuff as if that is the solution to everything, right? But the way media latches onto some of these things and loses its ability to critique them in a balanced way, and once billions and billions start flowing in, then everybody is trying to hop onto that gravy train and then lose their ability to discern between meaningful innovations and those which are just hype. Because of that, every once in a while you find marketers, business leaders, who do not understand that technology is not the solution. Any new technology that comes still has to be translated into a solution for the problems or opportunities that their business may have specifically. So my advice to marketers always is that whenever you are confronted with a new opportunity, you go back to your customer journey. Because at the end of the day, customer journey is the only truth. The most important job of a marketer is to handhold the customer from being at point A to point B, right? If you're a non-customer, then I want to convince you to become a customer. If you're an infrequent customer, I want you to be a loyal customer, and so on, right? So that journey, what are the bottlenecks? And does the new technology address any of these bottlenecks in ways that are better than things that I'm doing right now? Is the only question that matters. And that will keep marketers real, that will keep them honest to what they are being paid to do. Now, it is amazing how many times this very simple fact is forgotten. And the hype machine takes over. And people do things just because it's cool or it's edgy, or because the CEO in his last interview talked about that, or everybody else around me seems to be doing it. And mind you, it is not a call to play safe, because we are still talking about that portfolio of risks, right? But it is important that when you are taking a risk, it's a well thought through decision around the bottleneck you are trying to address in your customer journey. All right, that perspective should never be forgotten. So yeah, two things. Number one, kill the silos between creativity and technology, or marketing and technology, wherever they may exist. And number two advice would be know your customer and the bottlenecks in his journey, and make sure that any investment is designed, intended at least, to solve that. There will still be subjectivity in that, but that thinking through is very important to keep all of us real and honest in this ecosystem.
Very
And
well
that's
said.
what differentiates successful
Very
organizations from
insightful.
not
Yeah.
so successful. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think it fundamentally boils down to these, two, three scenarios, two, three, decision-making parameters. And you're right. I think, some of the successful companies that we see, the communication lines are very transparent. They are very clear. Teams collaborate very efficiently. The agenda is the business agenda, the common agenda. So they're not working for their respective departmental agendas, right? So they're looking at the business's agenda. So yeah. So moving on,
And Vikesh, just one more thing. Sometimes I have seen organizations create positions like CDO, Chief Digital Officer, to bridge that gap between CMO
and the CTO. Yeah.
I do not believe in that.
Okay.
If there is digital marketing and there is marketing, then we are creating more silos, unnecessary silos.
Yes.
All marketers need to be digitally infused.
Yes.
We need digitally pervasive marketing.
Right.
All right. So, and marketing must lead when it comes to digitization, because a lot of digitization, I'm not talking about supply side or industry, the manufacturing side and all that. A lot of digitization is supposed to ultimately create value for the customer.
Yeah. And I think, I'm just trying to, see, with the two things that you mentioned, that break down the silos and focus on the customer. A lot of times I think organizations are struggling with the bigger question that, are we a technology-driven company, or are we a marketing or a sales-driven company? But I think the more important question is, are you a customer-driven company? Right?
Absolutely, yeah.
If you're a customer-driven company, it doesn't really matter, which departments bring what strength, right? You are going to, leverage all of them collectively to be able to address your customers' problems better, right? If the customers' problems are solved, your problems are solved, right?
Customer is the only truth.
Correct.
Yeah. And marketers are supposed to wear the customer hat inside the organizations, to be able to fight for him.
Right.
To be able to dial up what really matters to the customers, right? So,
in fact, I was reading that a single line definition of marketing is that it is a function of generating, keeping, growing, and retaining customers. So it starts from lead generation. I mean, you start as a one-time buyer, and then you convert him into an advocate, then you convert him into somebody who will bring in more customers for you. Then you will ultimately convert him into like a co-owner, like a partner in your firm. And that entire onus, like you rightly said, whether it is use of data or technology, it lies on marketing.
Yeah, absolutely.
So on a related note, Prashant, how do you really, balance the need for creativity with the pressure to deliver results and ROI? So, it's a battle that I'm sure every marketer struggles with, right? So, you want to demonstrate, how innovative you are, how creative you are. But at the same time, there are pressures to, deliver results, to meet targets. And how do you, kind of really create a bridge and, balance the two?
Yeah. So when you talk about balancing, it sort of implies that it's a zero-sum game between creativity and results, right? Uh, I believe that it's not a zero-sum game. In fact, I would go so far as to suggest that the only creativity that matters in marketing is the one that produces results.
Very well said.
Yeah. In fact, uh, for marketing to be able to justify its ikigai, it's got to be able to create deltas that are, because marketing is, we all understand that versus, let's say, operations or sales or even production, marketing tends to be generally higher risk because of the subjectivity involved, because of the creativity involved, right?
Yes.
Because even the best marketers are at best second guessing what people want, right? Um, because marketing is what exists at the cusp of the heart of business and the soft of people's hearts and minds and wallets. So uh, towards that, sorry, can you repeat the question?
So yeah, so the question was that, how do you find a balance, in the need for creativity and, pressure to deliver the results?
Correct. So towards that, I would expect that marketing is able to, on the whole, in the due run, able to create higher deltas for the same investment. It's a little bit like stock markets. If you see fund managers and their portfolios, if a portfolio has higher volatility, the expectations on returns is higher as well, right? You cannot have a portfolio that has very high volatility as well, and your average returns are lower than a more stable portfolio. So, to me, that puts an extra pressure and an extra responsibility on marketing to be able to generate better deltas. Now, how do they do that? It goes back to what I said. On the question of creativity itself, the EBT test applies. The equity alignment, it should solve the bottleneck. So B is for bottleneck and T is for relevance to the target audience. But in the larger marketing play, where all four P's come into action, and I mean, there are people who have talked about 5 P's, there are people who have talked about 6 P's and whatever, but we all understand broadly where marketing plays. Once again, that result orientedness, whatever I do, how does that create a delta in that customer journey? That extra value is the crux.
Great.
I think so. Moving on, like you said, that balance needs to be there between creativity and obviously ROI is something which is expected out of any marketer.
So I would say instead of balance, I would use a multiplier relationship. The result orientedness should provide creativity the focus to be better, and the best piece of creative must drive the best results. So I am against seeing it as a zero-sum game. Creativity in our business is not creativity unless it dials up results.
So you are basically suggesting that rather than balancing, so rather than seeing them as two different aspects, it should be one leading to the other.
Result is return on creativity.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think as Prashant mentioned, I think as marketers tend to focus more on creating a higher delta, and some bit of this could also happen through experimentation, right? So like you said, that marketing is, a more higher risk, a function in that sense. Perhaps, with the window of opportunity available, some smaller, level punts could be taken, right? Some bit of experimentation could be done. And then you can realize that, okay, if the bets which are giving you better returns, wherever, you're being more creative, more innovative, and they're giving you higher yield compared to your regular, campaigns or work, you can then start investing more, in those initiatives.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, if there is a trade-off, it is basically between, let's say, low risk, low results, low return creativity, and high risk, high return
High
creativity.
reward. Yeah.
Yeah. So anything that's like high risk but low return is obviously a no-go. That is
Correct.
weak strategy itself. That means the EBT triangle has not been tested as it should be.
Right.
Yeah.
Sure. So I think that since you said that one leads to another, so how do you measure success of a marketing campaign? Or what matrices should one use to determine if a campaign is effective? And then, of course, like, because creativity is something which is very subjective, leading to a return on creativity. So then what are some of the challenges in measuring this?
Well, the challenges exist since at least 1950s when they first started trying to measure them. And some of the core challenges have not changed despite all the technology and data that has come into the play. All right. So let me try to outline the challenge with the help of the funnel. All right. So, there is the upper funnel, there is the mid funnel, there is the lower funnel. Upper funnel has more discovery, awareness related concerns. Middle funnel has more desire and emotional dialing up concerns. And the lower funnel is about conversions. Let's say I'm just trying to define a very simple way to look at it. Now, what the advent of data and technology in the marketing ecosystem, e-commerce and all that has done is lower funnel measurement has become a lot more rigorous. So today, vast amounts of money are when they are being spent, it is possible with a higher sense of rigor to measure what they are producing for you. Let's say, for instance, if you're trying to get people to register to play your game, you are an online game company, you spend $100, you get 37 people who click on it, out of which, let's say 14 of them will register for your game. And your average lifetime value of those 14 customers is, let's say, $14,000. And the net present value of those $14,000 worth of revenue is, let's say, $1,600 or whatever it might be in terms of the profits you make. So I'm saying that very rigorous calibration is already available for a lot of products that are D2C and they are e-commerce. Then you have guys who are not D2C, but they are e-commerce, in which case there is a little bit of blind spot in terms of data because marketplaces will not share all the data with you. But you still have a very good sense as to what you are able to drive. But the real blind spot exists in the upper and mid funnel, especially the mid funnel, where we are talking about emotional share of mental real estate and stuff like that, right? Because it is about measuring people's emotional inclination towards the brand preference, which is always tricky. It also is about measuring the short-term effects versus long-term effects. Because sometimes, people, it may have impacted perceptions, but it doesn't immediately translate to a hard rise in uptake of the product in the marketplace. It happens all the time. So there is short-term versus long-term effect issue as well. Now, traditional market research, of course, there are instruments that exist there. There is ad tracking, there is brand tracking. You look at spontaneous brand awareness, spontaneous ad awareness. You look at aided ad and brand awareness. You look at cut-throughs for different elements of the execution. You look at cut-throughs for different benefits that you are trying to communicate, which in turn you have modeled how certain benefits add up to drive brand preference for you, and hence you are able to triangulate how effective the marketing campaign may have been, right? So this is the traditional technique. It is not new. It is several decades old. It predates digital by a few decades. Even today, if you look at the savviest techniques that Facebook and Google and all use, for instance, there's a very famous technique these days talked about, which is called closed loop measurement. Actually, the name sounds very novel and sexy, but actually it is ad tracking and brand tracking pre and post, which has been around for many, many years. It's just being done through digital means and in a more targeted way now. So I would say that the most sophisticated technique for measuring the effectiveness of your marketing campaign is still the pre and post that exists, and the instruments of ad tracking and brand tracking, which you may not do pre-post, you may do it once a year, once in 6 months or something like that. A lot of businesses and brands, they are doing it on an ongoing basis as well, where you look at 4 weeks rolling data and so on, and be able to measure how effective your campaigns have been. One of the biggest challenges in measurement that exists, apart from the challenge of measuring subjective emotional disposition, is the fact that marketing campaigns rarely happen in isolation. Between the campaign and the sales, there are what statisticians would call too many intervening variables, right? So at any point of time, it's a live show there. Your campaign is going in, but your competitors' campaigns are also coming in. And then somebody has launched a new product, or somebody changed his packaging, somebody reduced his price, and distribution-wise, there is some drama going on there, So I'm saying there are so many different factors. There's seasonality, there is, the rains were bad that week, and hence less people felt the need to, buy a skincare product or something like that, All sorts of variables are there, right? How do you discern the impact of what marketing does specifically, or what a particular campaign does specifically, to put it better, is always a huge challenge. And, in the, the mathematicians found market mix modeling to try separate the effects of different inputs on the final output. But market mix modeling, number one, it was a black box. So not many practitioners felt that confidence to bet their investment decisions on the outcomes of a black box. And the number two challenge was that the statistical reliability of market mix modeling was rarely very, very high. So for those who might be mathematically oriented, I mean, there's this whole currency called R square.
Correlation, the regression coefficient.
Correct. Correlation, R square. So it denotes the reliability of an econometric model, multiple regression model, let's say. R squares, if it's 50%, it just means that 50% of the variation is explained by the model. 50% of the variation is not explained by the model.
Yeah.
Right? And that is unsettling for a marketer who is betting 100% of his bonus and probably his job on that investment decision. So economic models were always relatively limited in their application. Now, in the digital era, nowadays we talk about multi-touch attribution modeling, which uses similar techniques. I mean, they use logistic regression and all that. But again, there are some critical issues there. Issues like, for instance, offline to offline, online sales, or online to offline sales. In terms of touch points, not every touch point can be measured very clearly and very reliably to be able to incorporate in the overall model. So all these problems remain. But that shouldn't disappoint us, because marketing is a social science. It will, at best, marketing measurement can at best be sociometrics, right? I mean, economics, in many universities around the world, economics is taught as a science subject. Still, every once in a while, the world is rudely forced to be reminded that economists know very little. Right? We just look at what's happening with the Federal Reserve, and how you can see those guys have no handle on what is going on, right? They are just second guessing what their decisions might effect they may have in the market. So I'm saying marketing is like that. It is unfair to expect marketing to be 100% measurable. And that requires a mindset shift in the heads of the CEO and CFO as to how much
You can measure.
measurability will be there. So it will always come with higher risk. And the only way you can cover for that higher risk is expecting higher delta in due run. That is the only way. I
On
think
this note,
Silicon Valley in the last 20 years, the vested interest from Silicon Valley, the large platforms, they have tried to perpetuate a myth that marketing can be counted and measured 100%. That is a lie. Half the marketing dollars were unmeasured when John Wanaman talked about it first. You may all have heard that quote. Half of my advertising is wasted. I just don't know which half.
Which half?
Which half? Yeah.
That remains true by and large, even today.
Wow. I think, yeah, that's that, the ability to acquire that wisdom and, to be able to hold that thought, I think is very critical. You're, absolutely right. I think, not everything, could be measured, while the fact is that, yes, you can improve something that can be measured, but I think, a lot of these things are also experiential in nature. So, when you try them out, you learn better, you master the, variables better, right? So, and just like you said that, even economists struggle, right, with so many multitude of variables, right? Thing is also based on economics only, right? So,
and behavioral economics, right?
Correct.
If you could read people's minds,
Yeah.
then people are no more people, they are robots.
Yes.
The day everything in marketing will be measured, marketing will become finance or sales.
Yeah.
Then you don't need marketers.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think to some extent on that note, I mean, it is not fair to expect from marketeers, to be accountable for every buck which is being spent and to be accountable. I mean, then CMOs will become CFOs. You very lightly said that. Then marketing will become finance. And with so many variables in consumer, so there are so many things which goes on in all the four P's, right? There is consumer insights, there is behavioral psychology, there is consumer psychology, then there is data, then there is analytics, then how the market behaves, how competition is behaving, how the economy overall is behaving, what is happening to my GDP, what is happening to the global GDP. Everything will impact how your product or how a particular campaign or how your consumer reacts. So I think it is not fair from from that part to expect from a marketeer to deliver on everything, on every dollar being spent.
Yeah.
Yeah, but at the same time, Prashant and Harpreet, I also genuinely believe that marketers should not also take it as an anticipatory bail that, if, it's like, I should not be accountable at all, right? So there has to be some degree of accountability. There has to be some, amount of conscious thought around the choice of investments that you're going to make, right? And marketers have to be entrusted by the business that, the decisions that they are taking, even if the measuring ability is limited or negligible, is a decision in the interest of the company, is the interest of the customers, right? And
correct. And I would go so far as to say that marketing, because it entails higher risk, and higher blind spot, of some measurability, should be able to deliver higher delta. Right. We spoke about, portfolio managers, the fund managers all the time. If you have higher volatility, you deliver higher returns, right? So definitely accountability must be there. But measurability at a granular level is a bit too much to expect in all cases.
I think Vikesh, on accountability part, I mean, we are in those times. So like Prashant was saying, earlier the scenario was quite different. But in these times, it is given that kind of accountability. I mean, whether it is said or not said, it is implied that if you are spending 100, so then you are accountable for that.
Yeah.
It is like it is the most basic KRA of any marketeer who is being onboarded.
True. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Great. So, yeah, exciting conversation, and couple of more questions, Prashant. We'll try and cover these as quickly as we can. So moving on to we've looked at the kind of requirements that or expectations that businesses would have from marketers, right? The need to strike a balance, and as you said, it's not really a balance between creativity and the need to drive results, but they go hand in hand, right? In such a scenario, and especially in a world where technology is disrupting businesses and functions and our own everyday lives in a significant way. What advice would you give to marketing professionals who want to advance their career and stay relevant in the industry, for a longer time? What kind of critical skills do they need to build, to be efficient future marketers? And especially, in an era where, generative AI, metaverse, Internet of Things, blockchain, etc., all these major technologies we anticipate these to, reshape the world we live in. So how do marketers really need, stay sharp and relevant?
So, there's a very beautiful line by Steve Jobs where he has spoken about the fact that customers don't know what they want.
Yes.
Right. So what he is effectively saying is that for truly breakthrough innovation, we have to be able to dig deep into the
Tell them what they want.
latent needs of the people and to be able to imagine what they really need, right? So he's just dialing up the pointlessness of market research, for instance,
Right.
In situations like you cannot drive by looking into the rear view mirror. You have to look ahead, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of market research is akin to looking in the rear view mirror and driving forward, right? So that's what he's effectively saying. Now, as we live in a world which is evolving way faster than it ever did, clearly, how do marketers keep pace with the pace of change? And I have a very one-word advice for them, which is curiosity. A marketer needs to be the most curious creature in an organization. And I mean, curiosity has many other uses for us in our lives.
Yeah.
I truly believe that curiosity keeps you young forever. You truly grow old when you stop feeling the curiosity about new things and the wonder in discovery you lose. That is when you truly become old, not by your calendar age and stuff like that.
Right.
So, but coming to the marketing discipline itself, to be able to have that curiosity to learn about new things coming in the consumers' lives all the time, be able to put ourselves in the shoes of the consumers, whether it means, if Discord is where Midjourney is happening, have you tried Discord? Have you tried to imagine what kind of kids use Discord and why? And to what usage could Midjourney be put to? Have you played with it? These are very simple questions.
Yeah.
And so what I'm saying is that when you look at the customer ecosystem in which a marketer plays, in that ecosystem, there are many cultural phenomenon happening, content phenomenon happening, media channel, as in the commerce, I mean the commercial channel as well as the media channels. There are many evolutions happening. There are new things happening there. Do you have the curiosity to explore those, discover those, embrace those? That to me, so the journey of a marketer's excellence starts with his own personal curiosity. All right. So, because if you want to catch a fish, well, think like a fish. Like I said, it's a Maori saying, a beautiful saying. So, that to me is the one word advice. The second thing I would like to say that don't forget, marketing exists because there is creativity, and creativity needs courage. So don't forget the courage part. You should have the license to take bolder bets from your organization than, let's say, the operations guy will have. So use that license, but use it very, very judiciously, so that it connects to the business delta, right? So yeah, I mean, I would say curiosity, I would say courage, and the last thing is probably customer. Well, that makes for a clunky, for a neat 3C. Customer is about making sure whatever you do ultimately relates to the journey and the bottleneck that you are trying to solve. So that perspective should be very, very clean and clear in your head. So yeah, curiosity, courage, and customer.
Great.
Yeah,
So
and
I
I think
think,
it's yeah.
sorry,
Sorry,
go ahead.
I was just saying that very well put. I think the foundation is the curiosity. I think if you're curious enough to experiment, to learn, you'll stay relevant, you'll stay updated, right? And I think there's I mean, I personally also feel that there has to be an inherent drive to really learn and improve the way things are done, right? So, as you said that if you are genuinely curious about your customers and you want to help them, you'll kind of actually start thinking like Steve Jobs, right? It's not the job of my customer to know what he or she wants. I should be able to give them better, faster, more efficient solutions. So,
Correct.
and how technology plays a role is something that then we need to find and leverage accordingly.
Yeah, a marketer is a customer whisperer, if I may say. They got to know, they got to be able to read between the lines,
Right.
and be able to bring it alive for them, right? So
So
Sorry, Harpreet.
moving on, you have had a very successful career as a marketeer, and then now as an author, or aiding businesses in achieving an accelerated pace. So what fuels and drives you, or what does a typical day for a successful marketeer like you looks like?
well, like any profession, there is always a tremendous amount of logistical activity, but those are not what fuels me. I think it is the ability to create value out of imagination, uh, where my North Star is, and I would say the same for my team, different teams over the years. Ultimately, that love for the people, and to be able to create stuff, conjure offerings that can fuel people's imagination. I think that's what fires me up, and that probably is the central story of much of our success, for me as a leader, but also as a team. So yeah, that's what fuels me, really, to be able to do something different, something original, to be able to uh, create our little piece of future that can make that tiny hole in the sky. And we all are entitled to that tiny hole in the sky, right? We all have the power in us to be able to do that. And the best way to do that is not to follow the mundane and the well-trodden steps, but to do something different, something interesting, to be able to think afresh.
So I think that brings to the last question of this segment. If Vikesh, I can ask that.
Yeah, I would like to quickly touch upon a point, Harpreet, that was there, that I had in mind, and which is around that, Harpreet has briefly spoken about it as well, that, about your journey, right? So you've grown businesses at a phenomenal pace in the past. The businesses where you were an executive and a leader, and the business that you founded yourself, right? um, uh, I'm sure, viewers and listeners would love to hear, about this, that is there some kind of a secret formula or a secret sauce to drive such growth consistently? So what really is there a template? Is there some kind of a success formula, right? If you could just throw some light on that.
Well, there are themes, and uh, those may not sound extremely original. Sometimes the most powerful things are also some of the simplest things, right? I have already talked about curiosity. So I believe that I'm a very curious person. I have this innate desire to learn about new things uh, for its own joy. I mean, for instance, these days I was just reading a research paper on generative agents. So, just like generative AI is basically large language models that can, write original stuff based on all the text data that they have been fed. Generative agents are actually trying to simulate uh, human behavior in a community. So not just two-way conversation like you do with ChatGPT 4, where you are asking questions and this one is answering. Now just imagine that there were 25 ChatGPT 4s talking to each other and doing things. And so living in a community, and then you have one guy who knows how to interact with this neighbor versus how to interact with that neighbor based on all the information available about that neighbor and his day-to-day behaviors and what he does and who he is and how he thinks and so on. So in effect, generative agents models are trying to replicate how human society works. So I was just reading a research paper. Now, if you think about me as a practitioner, I don't have to actually go into a research paper to be able to do what I want. I mean, there are enough experts in Accenture system, for instance, in these areas, right? Hardcore nerds who delve deep into these things and can code things like that. But still, I felt that it's my innate curiosity to be able to figure out things. So curiosity is one. Second is courage. I think that's been a defining aspect of my career. Even when, at the age of 40, when I was the CEO for Asia and had been extremely successful for 4 years in that role, when I quit to start my own company, people said, "Hey, that's mad. What happened? Why are you leaving? Because it seems great, everything that you've been doing." And I said, maybe, I've been in this role for more than 4 years now, and I need to do something even more dangerous and something more thrilling and something that can help me, create something from a white sheet that can give me that sense of fulfillment for my sense of discovery and building original stuff. So courage would be the other thing. Third thing is credibility itself. That is an attribute that often in these days and times, especially people who are chasing the new, they forget that ultimately you got to be true to yourself and you got to be true to the people around you. So credibility as a leader, credibility to your to the businesses that you are working with or that you're advising, integrity of thoughts and ideas. All those things to me are very important and meaningful values. I think it keeps your true north in place. So, I have had people working in my team who have been with me for like 20 years, across multiple organizations. And similarly, clients I worked with in 2004, when I started my own company, they said, "Prashant, can we be your clients?" Right? So that sense of integrity and consistency that makes people trust you is, I think, a very important part of being a human being. Forget about being a professional or a business leader. So to me, that is very important. So 3 things: curiosity, courage, and credibility. I don't know if that's a secret sauce, but I know that those keep me real and keep me authentic. I feel no pressure to be fake and pretentious. Sometimes I can be that just to be nice to people, because I don't think knowing what you know is a permission to be rude to people. But at least you're honest to yourself.
Right. Yeah, I think yeah, that really nicely sums it up. And I'm sure, you would also devise systems and processes, that would help you save time, help you serve your customers better, right? So all of those, as well would play a role. But yeah, the foundation again depends on, are you constantly thinking about those systems? How do you improve those processes? How do you make things simpler, for your clients, for your customers, for their customers, right? How do you really build that value? So if you're
Yes.
constantly thinking about those, I'm sure, the success is going to be there.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, to me, the starting point is never the systems and processes, but culture,
Yeah,
culture and values. So you have the right culture, then systems and processes are
will
not
follow.
just something people are compelled to follow, but that
Right.
people see as necessary skeletons to build the body you are trying to build, because they're inspired by how beautiful the body will look, right? Because they've
Right.
already bought into that idea. So to me, a great failure of many large organizations today is that they put process and systems before culture.
Right.
To me, that's like putting the horse,
For the
putting the
card.
cart before the horse. Yeah.
Yeah, card before the horse. Right. Great. Excellent. So, yeah, I think this sums it up very nicely. There's one more question, Prashant. We would love to know about your future plans. What can we expect to see more from you, especially in the near future? And I know, we are going to be also learning more about generative agents ourselves.
So, uh, to me, the most important consideration at this life stage, where I have made enough money for what me or my family may ever need, uh, is actually what is worth doing. So something brave, something interesting, and there's a beautiful thought that life is not a pursuit of happiness, but a pursuit of meaning.
Hmm.
It's a journey to actualize your true self. The problem is that we don't know who our true self is, right? So it's almost like when you are a child, you get whispered in your ears, and then you spend rest of your life recalling and recreating uh, and finding that true north. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So this stage in my career, uh, I think some of those questions have become very, very relevant. Um, a bit early to say what is the next pivot in my life. But at the moment at Accenture, I'm really, really delving deep into the space of extended reality technologies, AI, how those can transform the demand chain, how those can create products and services that hopefully have meaning and value to people. So yeah, I'm learning a lot there, advising people in a lot of those areas, and part of conceiving and creating stuff that keeps me fueled.
Lovely. So your purpose is well defined. I'm sure you're on the right track. You know what you want. So
Yeah, thank you. But well, one thing that I'm very excited about right now is I'm building a social service center in my ancestral village.
I see.
Yeah, so I'm quite excited about what we could make out of that. I think the building is almost complete. I think another 6 months or so, and then I'm hoping that that can become a sort of hub for carrying out a lot of developmental catalyzing activities that can truly help where it's most needed. So let's I'm excited about using my imagination and as I see the world to be able to do that effectively.
Beautiful. Excellent. So yeah, so this brings us to the end of the second section. Thank you so much once again, Prashant. This was really, really invigorating. Lots of exciting thoughts and ideas. And we'll now move over to the section 3, which is the fast-paced, rapid-fire section. So do watch out the third section as well. Thank you
All
so
right, bring it on.
Sure. Thank you. Thanks, Prashant.